The space station hung in the darkness like a silver wheel, spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside, the grand assembly hall buzzed with noise. Hundreds of alien species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a strange symphony of clicks, growls, whistles, and words in languages that human ears had never heard before. Lieutenant stood near the entrance, watching the crowd. She was small compared to most beings in the room. Her uniform was simple and clean dark blue with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. She carried no weapons, no armor, nothing that made her look impressive or dangerous. To the aliens around her, she probably looked weak. She didn't mind. She had learned long ago that looking harmless was sometimes an advantage. The annual Predator Assessment Summit was the biggest event in the galactic calendar. Every year, species from across known space gathered to discuss the dominant predators of there. It was part science conference, part competition, part bragging rights. Everyone wanted to prove their world had produced the most fearsome hunters. Made her way through the crowd toward Earth's assigned seats. Other humans were already there. Park, a tall man with broad shoulders and alert eyes, nodded to her. He was the combat specialist, always watching for threats. Next to him sat Haywan, the team's doctor and biologist, who was reading something on her data pad. Shin, their security chief, stood nearby with his arms crossed, scanning the room. "Quite a crowd this year," said quietly. "More than last year," agreed. "Everyone wants to see what Earth brings to the table." "Do they know you're doing the presentation?" Haywan asked without looking up. "They'll find out soon enough." The lights dimmed. A hologram appeared at the center of the chamber, showing the rotating image of a predator from the host world. It was massive, covered in scales, with 6 legs and 3 rows of teeth. The crowd made appreciative sounds. The ceremony began. One by one, species stood to present their world's apex predators. They showed images of pack hunters that could run at incredible speeds. They displayed their world's ambush predators that could crush metal with their jaws. They presented aerial hunters with wingspans wider than buildings. Each presentation was met with applause and discussion. The aliens compared hunting strategies, physical attributes, and evolutionary advantages. Some species had claws that could cut through stone. Others had venom that could drop prey in seconds. Many had armor-like skin that protected them from almost any attack. Then it was Earth's turn. Before could stand, a massive figure rose from the section. Ambassador was nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick reptilian scales that looked like natural armor. His species were known across the galaxy as warriors and hunters, his yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation. "Wait's voice boomed across the chamber. His translator rendered his words in a deep, rumbling tone. "Before Earth presents, I have a question." The room went quiet, felt hundreds of eyes turned toward her section. "I have studied Earth's representatives," continued. "I have seen their biology reports. Humans have no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no sharp teeth worth mentioning. They are not particularly fast or strong by galactic standards. They have no natural weapons at all." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Many aliens nodded in agreement. "So I ask," said, his tone dripping with condescension, "what apex predator could possibly have evolved such a weak species? Surely whatever hunted on Earth must have died out long ago, allowing these soft creatures to inherit the planet by accident." Laughter rippled through parts of the assembly. Could see some aliens shaking their heads, as if pitying Earth for sending such an unremarkable representative. Stood slowly. The laughter continued for a few more seconds, then faded as the crowd waited to see what she would say. She walked to the center of the chamber, her steps echoing in the sudden silence. When she reached the presentation platform, she turned to face the assembly. She looked at the hundreds of powerful predator species watching her, at the cameras broadcasting this moment across the galaxy. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, gentle and calm. She raised her right hand, and pointed directly at herself. For a moment, nothing happened. Then someone in the back started laughing. The laughter spread like fire through dry grass. Soon, half the chamber was laughing. Some aliens slapped their appendages together in their version of applause, amused by what they thought was a joke. His laugh was loudest of all. The human claims to be the apex predator. This is rich. Perhaps they are also the dominant species because they told the other predators funny stories. The laughter continued, waited, her smile never changing, her hand still pointing at herself. Finally the noise died down, lowered her hand. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I understand your amusement. I don't look dangerous. I don't have the impressive physical traits you've seen presented today, but I stand by my answer." "This is absurd," said, though he was still grinning. "You cannot seriously claim—" "I request," interrupted calmly, "permission to present humanity's case over the next 5 days, not through images or data alone, but through practical demonstrations." The chamber went quiet again. The head counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, pulsed with interest. "What kind of demonstrations?" the counselor asked. "Physical challenges, survival tests, problem-solving scenarios, whatever the council deems appropriate to test an apex predator's capabilities." Looked directly at. "I believe the ambassador would be interested in participating." His grin widened, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Oh, I accept. This will be entertaining. I will enjoy showing everyone exactly why they are true apex predators while humans are merely clever prey." More laughter, but this time noticed some species weren't laughing. A few were leaning forward, curious. Some were whispering to their companions. "Very well," the counselor announced. "The request is granted. Beginning tomorrow, Lieutenant will present Earth's case through 5 days of demonstrations. All species are invited to participate or observe." Bowed slightly and returned to her seat, was grinning. Haywan was shaking her head but smiling, just nodded once, approving. "You know they're all going to want to see you fail," Haywan whispered. "I know," replied quietly. "That's what makes it interesting." As the ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse, noticed something. Some aliens were staring at her now, not with amusement but with curiosity. A few even looked concerned, as if something in her confidence had planted a seed of doubt. Good, she thought, let them wonder. Tomorrow, she would begin teaching the galaxy a lesson about Earth's apex predator. And by the end of 5 days, no one would be laughing anymore. They would understand exactly why humans had pointed at themselves. And they would understand what it meant to be hunted by something that never, ever stopped. The training grounds on the station were enormous, designed to accommodate species of all sizes and environmental needs. The course stretched across 50 kilometers of variable terrain, moving through different gravity zones, temperature extremes, and atmospheric conditions. It was normally used to train elite soldiers and athletes. Today, it would be the first testing ground for Earth's claim. Stood at the starting line wearing light athletic clothing. Around her, 23 other beings prepared for the race. Most were much larger than her, towered over everyone, his massive scaled body gleaming under the artificial lights. His powerful legs looked like they could launch him forward with incredible force. "The rules are simple," the race coordinator announced. 50 kilometers, any speed, any method of movement. First to cross the finish line wins. There are supply stations every 5 kilometers with water and basic nutrients. Stretched his enormous arms. "This will be over quickly, human. They are built for power and speed. You should forfeit now and save yourself the embarrassment." Just smiled, "We'll see." The signal sounded. Immediately the aliens burst forward, launched himself ahead with explosive force, his powerful legs eating up distance. Others followed at impressive speeds. Some ran on 4 legs, some on 6. Some flew short distances before touching down again. The sounds of their movement were like thunder. Started jogging, just jogging, steady and relaxed. Within 2 minutes, she was in last place. The nearest competitor was already 100 meters ahead, was far in the distance, barely visible. In the observation deck, thousands of aliens watched on screens. Most had already dismissed the human's performance. Some made bets on how quickly she would quit. But watching from the deck smiled. "They don't know," he said to Haywan beside him. "Should we tell them?" Haywan asked. "Where's the fun in that?" By the 5th kilometer was still in last place. But she noticed something. The gap between her and the others wasn't growing anymore. She maintained her steady jog, her breathing even and controlled. She grabbed water at the supply station without stopping, drank while running, and continued. At the 10th kilometer, she passed her first competitor. It was a 6-legged creature that had started strong but was now limping, its breathing harsh and labored. It had pushed too hard too fast. Its biology was designed for short, explosive chases, not sustained running. By kilometer 15 had stopped. He stood at a supply station, his chest heaving, his scales darker with overheated blood. His powerful muscles, perfect for short bursts of devastating speed, were overheating. He had burned through his energy reserves in the first explosive sprint. He watched in disbelief as jogged past. She wasn't even breathing hard. "How," he gasped, "how are you not tired?" Slowed slightly. "Different design," she said simply. Then she continued. At kilometer 20, half the competitors had quit. They sat or lay at supply stations, exhausted beyond their ability to continue. Their bodies simply weren't built for this kind of sustained effort. Was now in 5th place, and she hadn't changed her pace once. The aliens in the observation deck were no longer laughing. They watched the screens in confused silence as the small human just kept going, steady as a machine. "What is she?" someone asked. Haywan stood near the viewing window, watching her colleagues' progress. A group of aliens had gathered around her, asking questions. "It's called persistence hunting," Haywan explained. "Humans evolved on African plains where prey animals were faster than us, much faster, so we developed a different strategy. We didn't sprint, we walked, we jogged, we followed for hours, for entire days sometimes." But the prey would escape. An alien scientist objected. "At first, yes, but then we'd find their tracks. We'd follow, they would run again, we would follow again. Eventually, the prey animal's body would overheat. It would collapse from exhaustion, and we would simply walk up to it." The aliens looked disturbed by this description. "Your species hunted by walking?" one asked, disbelief clear in its voice. "We hunted by never stopping," Haywan corrected. "We are the most efficient long-distance runners on our planet. No other Earth species can match human endurance. Not horses, not wolves, not even the prey we hunted. We can run marathons in heat that would kill most animals. We can maintain a steady pace for hours, for days, without stopping." At kilometer 30, only 4 competitors remained besides, and she was now in 2nd place. Her pace had never changed. The being in 1st place was slowing, its movements becoming unsteady. Its breathing was deeper now, but still controlled. Her legs were tired, but they kept moving with the same rhythm they had started with. This was what humans did. This was what they were built for. At kilometer 35, she took 1st place. The previous leader had collapsed, unable to continue. Only 3 others were still moving, all far behind her now. The observation deck was completely silent. Thousands of aliens watched as the small human who had started in last place now led the race by a significant margin, and she still wasn't stopping. Having recovered enough to move to the observation deck, watched the screens with an expression that was no longer amused. It was something else, something closer to fear. "She's not even using her full speed," he said quietly. "Is she?" "No," answered. "She's being efficient. That's what makes humans dangerous. We don't waste energy. We calculate. We pace ourselves and we never give up. At kilometer 40, the second-place competitor quit. Two others remained, but they were kilometers behind, moving slowly, clearly struggling. Increased her pace slightly. Not much, just enough to show that she had been holding back. Her legs pumped steadily. Her arms swung in rhythm. Sweat covered her skin, her body's cooling system working exactly as designed. Other species couldn't sweat like humans. They had to stop to cool down. They had to pant to rest, to shade themselves. Humans just kept running, their bodies shedding heat as they moved. At kilometer 45, was alone on the course. Everyone else had either quit or fallen so far behind that they couldn't be seen. The observation deck filled with whispers. This small human who looked so weak had outlasted every single competitor. Species that had evolved as hunters, predators, warriors had all been defeated by simple, persistent movement. At kilometer 50, crossed the finish line. She slowed to a walk, breathing deeply but not gasping. She grabbed water, drank, and stretched her legs. The time was recorded. She had maintained an average pace that was neither impressive nor slow, just steady, just efficient, just unstoppable. 10 minutes later, the next competitor crossed the line, a flying species that could glide for short distances. It collapsed immediately, completely exhausted. The final two competitors quit at kilometer 47. The race coordinator announced as the winner. Polite applause filled the observation deck, but it was confused applause. They had seen something that didn't match their understanding of how predators worked. Returned to the observation deck. Approached her, his expression serious now. "I don't understand," he said. "You have no physical advantages. You're not fast, you're not strong. How did you win?" Looked up at the massive alien. "My species didn't chase prey for a few minutes. We chased it for hours, sometimes for 2 days straight. The animal would run until its heart gave out, and we would still be there walking steadily behind it. That's what humans are. We're the thing that doesn't stop, ever." She walked past him to where her team waited. Behind her, the observation deck erupted in conversation. Species were pulling up Earth's evolutionary data, reading about persistence hunting, about human endurance, about the slow, terrifying pursuit that had made humans the dominant species on their world. And some of them were beginning to understand that perhaps the human smile on the first day had meant something different than they thought. Perhaps it hadn't been a joke at all. Perhaps it had been a warning. The simulation chamber was dark when entered. This was day 2 of the demonstrations, and the crowd watching had doubled in size. Word had spread about yesterday's race. Aliens who had dismissed Earth's claim were now curious. Some were worried. The delegation had designed today's challenge themselves. They wanted to prove that physical endurance meant nothing without proper predator instincts. "The test is simple," announced to the assembly. "A virtual prey creature has been released into a complex environment. The hunter must track it using only the clues it leaves behind. The environment is three-dimensional, with multiple levels, hiding spots, and false trails. The creature is intelligent and will actively try to deceive pursuers." He gestured to the simulation chamber. "The record time for this test is 47 minutes, set by a master hunter. Most species take over 3 hours, some never complete it at all." Nodded, studying the entrance to the chamber. "Any special equipment?" "A basic scanner that shows tracks and traces within 5 meters. Nothing more. The rest is pure hunting skill." "Understood," stepped into the chamber, the door sealed behind her. The observers watched through screens showing first-person perspective and an overhead map. The virtual environment appeared around her, a complex maze of corridors, rooms, vertical shafts, and interconnected spaces. Somewhere in this maze, a creature was hiding, waiting, trying to survive. Stood still for a moment, just looking. Then she began to move. She didn't rush. She walked slowly through the first corridor, her eyes scanning everything. Every mark on the floor, every disturbance in the dust, every scratch on the walls. The scanner showed fresh tracks leading right. She ignored them and turned left instead. "She's going the wrong way," an alien observer noted. But watching from the observation deck smiled. "No, she's not." Followed the left corridor, running her hand along the wall. She stopped at a ventilation grate, examined it, then kept moving. 3 minutes later, she found a junction where tracks went in two directions. She knelt, studying the tracks carefully. They looked identical. The creature had clearly walked both paths to confuse pursuers. But noticed something. One set of tracks pressed slightly deeper into the dust. The creature had made the false trail first, then taken the real path while carrying more weight from fatigue. She followed the deeper tracks. "How did she know?" asked, leaning forward in his observation seat. "Pattern recognition," Haywan explained. She had become the unofficial spokesperson for human abilities. Humans evolved to read incredibly small details in their environment. We tracked animals across vast distances by noticing disturbed grass, broken twigs, the direction of bent leaves. We learned to read not just what happened, but when it happened and why. On the screen, moved through the simulation with increasing confidence. She found a room where the creature had rested. The scanner showed multiple heat signatures, suggesting the creature had been there for a while. But examined the room differently. She looked at how the dust was disturbed. She checked corners where a creature might hide. She touched surfaces to feel for warmth. Then she looked up. The ceiling had vent shafts. "It went up," she said quietly to herself. She found a way to climb and pulled herself into the vent system. 20 minutes had passed. She was ahead of the record pace. The creature, controlled by advanced AI, was programmed to think like prey. It hid. It doubled back. It created false trails. It used water to hide its scent, climbed to escape ground tracks, and moved through areas with strong environmental interference to confuse scanners. But anticipated every trick. When the creature used water, she tracked it by finding the wet footprints it left afterward. When it climbed, she noticed scratches on vertical surfaces. When it tried to hide its trail with interference, she used logic to predict where it would go next. "She's not tracking it," said, his voice quiet. "She's thinking like it." "Yes," Haywan confirmed. "Humans have something called theory of mind. We can model the thoughts and intentions of other beings. When we hunt, we don't just follow tracks. We imagine what the prey is thinking. Where would it feel safe? What would it do if it was tired, if it was scared? We become the prey in our minds, and that tells us where to find it." Reached a large chamber with dozens of exits. The scanner showed tracks going in multiple directions. This was designed to be the hardest part of the test, the place where most hunters gave up. Stood in the center of the room and closed her eyes. She thought about the creature. It had been running for 25 minutes now. It would be tired. It would want to find a place to hide, not keep running. But it would also want an escape route in case it was found. She opened her eyes and walked directly to one specific exit, the one that led to a dead-end room with a vent shaft, a place to hide with an escape route. She was right, the creature was there. The simulation ended. Time, 32 minutes, a new record beating the previous one by 15 minutes. The observation deck was silent. Exited the chamber. She looked tired but satisfied. "It's all about understanding behavior," she said to the watching crowd. "Predators don't just need to be fast or strong. They need to think. They need to predict. Humans evolved to track prey across entire continents, sometimes following them for weeks. We learned to read the story written in the environment. We learned to think like the animals we hunted." An alien scientist, resembling a large insect, spoke up. "But tracking is just following. Your test showed more than that. You predicted behavior." "Because humans hunt in groups," explained. "When we hunted, we had to coordinate. I need to predict where the prey will run so my partner can wait there. I need to understand what my fellow hunters are thinking so we can work together without speaking. We evolved to model minds to predict behavior, to understand intention. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth animals. Look at these eyes. Most predators on Earth have eyes on the sides of their heads, giving them a wide field of vision. But humans, like the other great apes, have eyes facing forward. Do you know why? The aliens waited. Depth perception, continued. And more importantly, to read faces. Humans can detect incredibly subtle changes in facial expressions. We can tell if someone is lying, if they're scared, if they're planning something. We evolved to read each other's minds through facial cues, and we applied that same skill to reading animals. Stood slowly. You're saying humans are predators that evolved to predict thought itself. We're predators that evolved to understand minds, corrected. Prey minds, predator minds, and each other's minds. That's what made us apex predators. Not claws or teeth, but the ability to know what you'll do before you do it. She looked around the observation deck. That's why we dominated Earth. We hunted animals that were faster and stronger by predicting where they would run. We survived alongside other predators by understanding how they hunted and avoiding them. And when we competed with other human groups, we survived by predicting their strategies. The room remained quiet. The implications were settling in. A species that could read minds, predict behavior, and model intentions was a terrifying kind of predator. Tomorrow, announced, we'll test adaptability. I look forward to seeing you all there. She left the observation deck. Behind her, the aliens began talking in urgent whispers. Some were excited by the new understanding of human cognition. Others were disturbed. Approached quietly. Some of the delegations are requesting the demonstrations be stopped. They're concerned about what these tests are revealing. About our capabilities, asked. About what our capabilities mean for the galaxy. Looked at the screens showing recordings of Hunt. She's just showing them the truth. We never hid what we are. No, agreed. But maybe they never really understood what apex predator meant for a species like us, one that hunts with its mind. In her quarters, reviewed footage of the test, making notes. She knew tomorrow would be harder. The council would design a test that pushed beyond tracking and prediction. They would test survival itself. And that's when she would show them what humans truly were. Not just hunters, not just survivors, but adapters. Species that could survive anywhere, thrive in any condition, and turn any environment into a home. The galaxy was about to learn that human apex predators didn't just hunt prey. They hunted solutions to any problem the universe could throw at them. The survival simulation chamber was the most advanced testing facility on the station. It could recreate any planetary environment with perfect accuracy. Today, it was set to a nightmare world. The council had spent the night designing the challenge. They chose a planet from their records, one so hostile that no species had ever successfully colonized it. The atmosphere was toxic to most life forms. Temperature swung from freezing to boiling within hours. The native life was aggressive and predatory. Water was scarce. Edible plants were rare and often toxic. The record survival time for any species in the simulation was 6 hours and 14 minutes. Would spend 48 hours there. This is extreme, Song, Earth's senior diplomat, had protested. No one has lasted more than 6 hours in these conditions. If humans are truly apex predators, had responded, they should be able to survive in any environment. Isn't that what predators do? Now stood at the chamber entrance, wearing only basic survival gear, a simple jumpsuit, a knife, a water bottle, and a small emergency kit. No advanced technology, no weapons, nothing that would make the challenge easy. The door opened. Harsh wind and strange chemical smells rushed out, stepped inside. The environment materialized around her. Red sky with thick clouds, rocky terrain with sharp stones, strange plants with thorny exteriors. The air was thin and tasted wrong. The temperature was cold, maybe 5 degrees above freezing. Took a slow breath through her nose, testing the air. It burned slightly but was breathable, barely. She looked around, analyzing everything. First priority, shelter. Second, water. Third, food. Fourth, security. The observers watched her on their screens. The chamber was massive, several kilometers across, filled with realistic terrain, was just a small figure in a hostile world. She began to move, not rushing, just exploring systematically. She found a rocky outcrop that provided some protection from the wind. Good place for shelter. She noted its location and continued searching. An hour passed, had mapped a large area in her mind. She found a water source, a small stream that appeared clean but might be toxic. She found plants that might be edible. She found signs of predator activity. She also found materials, rocks of different types, dead branches from strange trees, vines that could work as rope, dried moss that could burn. She returned to the rocky outcrop and began to work. First, shelter. She used rocks to build a basic windbreak. She wove branches together using vines, creating a frame. She covered the frame with layers of moss and broad leaves from plants. Within 2 hours, she had a small shelter that would protect her from wind and cold. Impressive, an alien observer noted. But shelter alone won't keep her alive for 48 hours. Haywan watched the screen with pride. She's just getting started. Tested the water. She built a simple fire using friction and dried moss. She boiled the water in a container she had made from folded rocks sealed with plant resin. After testing a small amount and waiting to see if she felt sick, she determined the water was safe. Water secured. Next, food. She examined the local plants carefully. Many were toxic, her kit's basic scanner confirmed, but some weren't. She found roots that were edible. She found fruits that looked strange but tested safe. She set up simple traps using sticks and vines near animal trails. By the 6th hour, when the previous record holder had given up, was sitting by her fire, eating roasted roots, drinking clean water, and working on improving her shelter. The observers were silent. This human had already outlasted every other species, and she looked comfortable. How? Asked. This environment is designed to be lethal. Humans evolved on a planet with incredible environmental diversity, Haywan explained. We learned to survive in Arctic tundra, scorching deserts, humid jungles, high mountains, and dry plains. No other species on Earth has our range. We wear clothes to protect us from extreme temperatures. We build fires to warm us. We build shelters from whatever materials we find. We test foods carefully to determine what's safe. But this is an alien world, another observer protested. She has no knowledge of this environment. Exactly, Haywan said. And she's surviving anyway. That's what makes humans apex predators. We don't need to know an environment, we learn it. We adapt to it, we master it. By hour 12, had improved her shelter significantly. She had built a proper roof that kept out rain when a sudden storm hit. She had created a food storage area where she kept roots, fruits, and even some small creatures she had caught in her traps. She had made better tools from rocks she had shaped by hitting them against each other. By hour 24, she had a thriving small camp. Her fire was controlled and efficient. Her shelter was comfortable. She had mapped the entire area and knew where to find resources. She had even started experimenting with local plants, trying to determine which ones had useful properties. But then the environment changed. The simulation was programmed to shift. Temperature began to rise dramatically. Within an hour, it went from cold to unbearably hot. The sun became fierce. Water began to evaporate. Most species would panic. Most would try to wait it out. Most would die. Assess the new situation calmly. She needed to conserve water. She needed to stay cool. She needed to adjust. She moved her camp to a cave she had noticed earlier. The cave was cooler. She brought all her supplies inside. She covered herself with wet moss to help cool her skin through evaporation. She rationed her water carefully. She stopped unnecessary activity and rested during the hottest hours. When the temperature dropped again at night, she went out and collected more water, more food, more materials. She's not just surviving, an alien scientist observed. She's thriving. She's turning this hostile environment into a home. By hour 36 had solved another problem. A local predator, something like a large reptile with sharp claws, had been circling her camp. Instead of hiding or fighting, set up better defenses. She built barriers of sharp sticks. She created noise traps that would warn her of approach. She left some of her food outside as an offering, and the predator, satisfied with easy food, stopped threatening her camp. She's negotiating with the local predator, said in disbelief. Humans domesticated wolves, reminded him. We turned predators into partners. We've lived alongside dangerous animals for thousands of years. We don't always fight. Sometimes we cooperate. By hour 48 had achieved something remarkable. She had not just survived but created a sustainable living situation. She had renewable food sources. She had clean water. She had shelter. She had tools. She had security. If the simulation continued, she could probably live there for months. When the simulation ended and exited the chamber, the observation deck erupted. Not with applause, but with urgent conversation. What they had witnessed wasn't just survival. It was domination of an environment through pure adaptability. Stood before the assembly, tired but steady. Humans evolved without specialization, she said. We don't have thick fur for cold climates, so we learned to make clothes. We don't have natural weapons, so we made spears and knives. We can't digest many plants naturally, so we learned to cook and process food. We didn't adapt our bodies to the environment. We adapted the environment to our bodies. She pulled up images of Earth. Humans live in every biome on our planet: Arctic ice, tropical jungles, high mountains, deep deserts. We live in places where the temperature is minus 40 degrees and places where it's plus 50 degrees. We eat thousands of different foods. We drink water we've cleaned ourselves. We build homes from whatever materials we find. Another image appeared. And when Earth wasn't enough, we left it. We built stations in space. We established colonies on our moon. We're planning to live on other planets. Because humans don't need a perfect environment. We make any environment work for us. The room was absolutely silent. That's what apex predator means for humans, continued. We don't just hunt. We don't just survive. We adapt. We overcome. We take any challenge the universe offers and we find a solution. Give us a hostile planet and we'll build a city on it. Give us a deadly environment and we'll thrive in it. Give us a problem that seems impossible and we'll invent a tool to solve it. She looked at directly. You asked how such a weak species could be apex predators. This is how. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We're not the most venomous or armored, but we're the most adaptable. And in the long run, adaptability beats every physical advantage. Stood slowly. For the first time since the demonstrations began, he looked at with something other than condescension or confusion. He looked at her with respect. I begin to understand, he said quietly. An apex predator that can adapt to anything is an apex predator that can survive everything. Yes, agreed. And tomorrow you'll understand the rest. Tomorrow we talk about what humans did with all these advantages. She left the observation deck. Behind her, the aliens continued talking. Some were amazed, some were inspired, and some were beginning to feel concerned about what the final demonstration would reveal. Because if humans had endurance, intelligence, and adaptability, what did that combination create? What happened when an apex predator became smart enough to question its own nature? Tomorrow they would find out. The fifth day arrived with tension in the air. The observation deck was completely full. Species from across the galaxy had arrived to witness the final demonstration. Word had spread about what the humans had shown in the previous days. Everyone wanted to see how it would end. Entered the assembly hall to complete silence. She wore her formal uniform now, crisp and professional. Behind her, Haewon and Song followed, representing Earth's delegation. Stood as she approached the central platform. The massive looked different now. 4 days ago he had been mocking and dismissive. Now he looked serious, almost troubled. "Human," he said formally, "you have demonstrated physical endurance, mental capability, and survival adaptability. These are qualities of a powerful predator. But I have one final question, and I believe many here share my concern." He gestured to the crowd. "If humans possess all these advantages, if you are such efficient hunters, such intelligent predictors, such adaptable survivors, then what happened to the other species that competed with you? What happened to the other apex predators on Earth?" The chamber went completely silent. This was the question everyone had been wondering. If humans were this dangerous, what did that mean for the species that had opposed them? Looked at then at the crowd. "That's an excellent question, and the answer is complicated. May I show you?" The lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth from space, then zooming in to show various landscapes and time periods. 50,000 years ago, began, humans were not the only intelligent species on Earth. There were others. Our closest relatives were called Neanderthals. They were stronger than us, had bigger brains in some ways, and were well adapted to cold climates. Images of Neanderthals appeared, showing stocky, powerful beings. "What did we do to them?" asked. "We didn't just outcompete them. We met them and some of us mated with them. Today many humans carry Neanderthal DNA. They're not extinct. They're part of us. We absorbed them into our species." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "But that's not the whole story," continued. The images changed, showing massive animals. Earth had megafauna, giant mammals. Mammoths covered in fur standing 4 meters tall, huge sloths, enormous bears, saber-toothed cats with teeth like knives. She paused. "Humans hunted many of them to extinction, not because we needed to, not for survival, but because we could. We killed animals that had survived for millions of years. In just a few thousand years after humans spread across the planet, most large animals disappeared." The mood in the chamber grew darker. This was what they had feared. Proof that humans were killers, dangerous to any species that stood in their way. "And then," said her voice quiet, "we realized what we had done." New images appeared, conservation efforts, nature preserves protected species. "We became the only apex predator on Earth that stopped hunting. We created laws against killing certain animals. We set aside vast territories where no human could hunt or build. We spent enormous resources bringing animals back from the edge of extinction. We protected species that competed with us for food. We guarded predators that sometimes killed humans." Confusion rippled through the observers. "We became," said, "the first apex predator in Earth's history to look at our dominance and ask a question. Just because we can, should we?" She looked around the chamber. "You want to know what makes humans truly unique as apex predators? It's not our endurance or our intelligence or our adaptability. It's that we developed ethics. We created morality. We chose to limit ourselves." The holographic display changed again, showing human history. Wars, conflicts, destruction. Then peace, cooperation, rebuilding. Humans have fought each other for thousands of years. We've had terrible wars. We've killed millions of our own kind. But we also created laws. We established rights. We built international agreements. We made rules for war itself, trying to reduce suffering even in conflict. She pulled up more images. Humans helping animals. Humans saving other humans. Humans crying at sad stories. Humans protecting the weak. "Look at these," said. "A human doctor saving a dying animal that's not even the same species. A human soldier sharing food with a stray dog in a war zone. Humans crying at fictional stories about suffering. Humans risking their lives to save complete strangers from different countries, different cultures, different beliefs. The chamber was absolutely silent now, every being focused on the images. We are persistence hunters who decided that persistence doesn't always mean pursuit. We are pattern recognizers who learned to see patterns of suffering and chose to prevent them. We are adapters who adapted our own nature, not just our environment. His voice grew stronger. Yes, we are apex predators. Yes, we dominated Earth so completely that we could have destroyed every other species. But we didn't. We chose not to. We chose to protect instead of destroy. We chose to preserve instead of consume. We chose compassion over conquest. She looked directly at. You asked what happened to species that competed with us. Here's the truth. Some we destroyed before we knew better. Some we absorbed into ourselves. And once we understood what we were capable of, we stopped. We created sanctuaries. We brought species back from extinction. We protected our competition instead of eliminating it. New images appeared. Earth's nature preserves spanning millions of square kilometers, protected species thriving, oceans cleaned, forests. Humans spent billions of our currency units protecting wolves, even though wolves sometimes kill humans. We protected sharks, even though sharks sometimes attack us. We protected tigers, lions, bears, every predator that ever threatened us, because we decided that their existence mattered more than our convenience. The holographic display showed space stations, careful resource management, sustainable practices. And when we reached space, we brought these ethics with us. We don't colonize inhabited worlds. We don't consume resources without renewal. We don't expand through conquest. We chose exploration over exploitation. Stepped forward, addressing the entire assembly. You've spent 4 days watching me demonstrate human capabilities as apex predators. Today, I'm showing you something more important. Humans are apex predators who became conscious of what that meant. We're hunters who chose to become guardians. We're killers who decided to become protectors. She spread her arms. This is what makes humans different. We had the capability to dominate, the intelligence to strategize, and the adaptability to thrive anywhere. And we used those gifts to develop empathy. We used our apex predator minds to understand the minds of prey, and that understanding made us care about them. Stood slowly. You're saying that humans became apex predators, achieved total dominance, and then chose to limit yourselves. Yes. Why? Smiled. Because we asked ourselves a question no other apex predator ever asked. What kind of species do we want to be? We could be conquerors. We could be destroyers, but we chose to be something else. Protectors, teachers, friends. She pulled up one final image. Earth, as seen from space, blue and green and beautiful. Our planet survived us because we decided it should. Other species exist because we chose to let them exist. And now we're here in space, meeting other intelligent species, and we're making the same choice. We could be a threat. We have all the tools of an apex predator, but we choose to be partners instead. The chamber remained silent for a long moment, then did something no one expected. He bowed too, a deep formal bow of respect. I understand now, he said. The most dangerous predator is one that chooses when to be dangerous. Humans are not terrifying because of what you can do. You're terrifying because you could do so much more, but you choose restraint. We're terrifying because we think about consequences, corrected gently. Because we imagine suffering and decide to prevent it. Because we're smart enough to be dangerous but wise enough to choose kindness. Other beings in the assembly began to stand, showing their forms of respect. Some were moved by what they'd learned. Others were relieved. All were impressed. A young scientist approached after the formal assembly ended. He was smaller than, younger, with bright, curious eyes. Lieutenant, he said respectfully, my world faces environmental collapse. Our expansion destroyed habitats. Species are dying. We don't know how to fix what we've broken. Could Could you teach us, help us? Smile was warm and genuine. Of course, that's what humans do. We teach, we share, we help. Because the scariest thing about human apex predators isn't our ability to destroy, it's our choice to build instead. Over the next hours, dozens of species approached the human delegation. Some wanted to learn survival techniques. Others wanted to understand environmental restoration. Some just wanted to talk, to understand these strange apex predators who hunted with empathy. That evening stood at the observation port looking out at the stars. Joined her carrying 2 drinks. "You did well," he said. "We all did. This was a team effort." Do you think they really understand? Considered the question. Some do, some will, others will need time, but they know now that Earth's apex predator isn't just a hunter. We're a species that learned to question our own nature and choose to be better than our instincts. She sipped her drink, watching ships arrive and depart from the station. Ships from hundreds of worlds, carrying thousands of species, all sharing this space peacefully. "We showed them that being apex doesn't mean being alone at the top," she said quietly. "It means having the power to lift others up with you." Nodded. "Think any of them will test us, try to challenge humans now that they know what we are?" Smiled. "Maybe. But they'll also remember that we're the apex predators who chose peace, who spent our power on protection instead of domination, who became dangerous enough to destroy everything, and then decided to save it instead." She turned from the window. "Come on. Wants to discuss cultural exchange programs. Apparently, 17 species want to learn about human ethics and environmental restoration." As they walked away from the observation port, felt satisfied. The galaxy had asked who Earth's apex predator was. She had pointed at herself, and then spent 5 days teaching them what that truly meant. Not a threat, not a conqueror, not a destroyer, but a species that hunted solutions to problems, that pursued peace with the same persistence they once used to pursue prey, that adapted their own nature with the same skill they used to adapt to environments. Earth's apex predator was humanity, and humanity had chosen to use its power to protect, not destroy. That was the real lesson. That was what made them truly terrifying and truly hopeful.